When people hear the word ownership, they usually think about control, more freedom, more leverage, more upside. But the real reason ownership changes income has nothing to do with control. It changes the math, not because numbers get bigger, but because the rules governing those numbers quietly shift. As a builder, income math is simple. Effort in, results out. You work more, income rises. You stop, income falls. That relationship is exhausting, but it's clear. As an owner, that equation breaks. Because ownership introduces time, risk, and structure into the calculation. And once those enter, income stops behaving linearly. Builders think in weeks. Owners think in exposure. Builders ask, what will this earn? Owners ask, what could this cost if it fails? That question alone changes how income is designed. Because ownership is not about maximizing return. It's about optimizing survival across time. Ownership changes income math by shifting focus from upside to durability. When you own an income system, every decision carries a shadow. Not just what it can earn, but what it can endanger. Cash flow, reputation, trust, optionality. Those don't show up on dashboards, but they dominate long-term income outcomes. This is why owners appear slower than builders. They're not slower. They're accounting for variables builders can ignore. As a builder, you can chase upside because failure is recoverable. As an owner, failure compounds. A bad decision doesn't just cost money. It destabilizes structure. It introduces fragility. It increases future effort. That's a different kind of math. In ownership, every gain is discounted by the risk it introduces. This is where time fully enters the equation. Before ownership, time is pressure. Deadlines, launch cycles, revenue months. After ownership, time becomes a multiplier. Because owned income systems interact with time, whether you act or not. Reputation deepens. Defaults harden. Trust accumulates. Behavior stabilizes or decays. Time is no longer neutral. It either reinforces what you've built or exposes what you've neglected. Owners understand this intuitively. That's why they value boredom, predictable income, repeatable behavior, uneventful months. Not because they lack ambition, because boredom is evidence of mathematical stability. A boring income system is one where variance has been reduced, and reduced variance is what allows time to work in your favor. Ownership turns volatility into a liability, not a thrill. This is also why owners become selective about leverage. Builders use leverage to accelerate output. Owners use leverage to reduce dependence. They ask, what happens if this platform changes? What if demand softens? What if attention shifts? What if I step away? Those questions don't kill growth. They determine whether growth survives. And this is where income math really changes. As a builder, income grows by addition. As an owner, income grows by retention. Retention of customers. Retention of trust. Retention of learning. Retention of position. Every retained advantage compounds quietly, not explosively, which is why ownership income often looks unimpressive early. It grows slower at first, but it doesn't reset. And that's the difference. Builders experience income in cycles. Owners experience income in trajectories. Cycles repeat. Trajectories tilt. Ownership changes income from something you earn repeatedly into something that accumulates. This is also where decision quality begins to outweigh decision frequency. Builders win by acting often. Owners win by acting correctly. Fewer moves, more consequence, which is why ownership is mentally heavier. You're no longer managing activity. You're managing irreversible decisions. That weight doesn't slow income. It protects it. And protection is what allows compounding to persist. Without protection, growth simply increases the size of future losses. That's why ownership math always includes downside. Not pessimistically. Structurally, owners don't ask, how big can this get? They ask, what size can this safely sustain? That constraint doesn't cap income, it anchors it. And anchored income is what compounds over decades instead of collapsing under pressure. This is also why ownership changes how success feels. As a builder, success feels like momentum. As an owner, success feels like quiet. Few emergencies, few surprises, few weeks that require heroics. Income becomes less exciting and far more powerful. Because the math now favors consistency over intensity. And consistency is what time rewards. Ownership changes income math by turning time from a threat into an ally. Once that happens, income no longer depends on constant optimization. It depends on preservation. Preservation of structure. Preservation of trust. Preservation of optionality. That's when income stops asking you to prove your effort. It starts asking whether it's safe in your hands. And that's the final shift. Ownership doesn't just increase income, it changes the arithmetic behind it. And once the math changes, the outcomes do too, whether you chase them or not.